Ball top of everyone's mind right now, just days away from March Madness. And ahead of that, a new book about Larry Legend, who had his own legendary run for Indiana State. It's called Heartland. It explores his roots, personal struggles, rise to stardom in the NBA. And joining us now is the author, Keith O'Brien. Thanks so much for being here.
Good morning.
Good morning to you, sir. Okay, so there have been books about Larry Legend before, but this one is receiving a lot of high praise, and people are saying it's different. How?
Well, you know, for 50 years, we've been telling this story one way.
Okay.
Anytime someone comes to the Bird story, the early Bird story, they do the Bird magic thing.
Sure.
The Larry Bird, Magic Johnson combo narrative. And I get why people do that, you know. Obviously, Bird and Magic will play in that epic championship game in March 1979, and then they'll go on to redefine the NBA.
Yeah.
But in the 70s, they don't know each other.
Yeah.
You know, they've met one time before 1979. They're not friends, they're not rivals, they're not anything. And so what I've really done with this book is tilt the camera in a different direction and zoom in on this remarkable origin story of Larry Bird in rural Indiana. When you do it that way, you get almost a completely different story.
Yeah.
And what you see is this cast of characters around Larry who did form and shape and at times save him.
Yeah, you know, even going back to the early 90s when AAU was, everywhere, a lot of these top athletes knew each other. But it's fascinating that, as you point out, Larry and Magic didn't know each other. I always wonder about the research. What is it like to research a story that's been done before, and how do you put aside the already unearthed material, if you will?
Well, right. I mean, your job as a writer is to move the story forward, take us places where we haven't been. And that's especially hard in this case because Larry did not participate with me for this book.
Yeah.
He declined to speak to me. So, you know, I had to go deep. You know, I spent weeks in Indiana, weeks in Terre Haute, where Larry played his college ball, weeks in French Lick, where, of course, he grew up. You know, did more than 200 hours of interviews with the people who knew Larry during this time. My narrative unfolds between 1973 and 1979. Everything else is effectively epilogue material. And I also spent days and days in archives, you know, relied on memos, letters, documents, as well as diaries and journals that people kept during this time. You know, while people were living through this moment, they knew that what was happening was momentous. And so at least a few of them recorded those thoughts in real time and shared those journals with me.
You've been a New Englander for more than a quarter century, adopted New Englander. So obviously you're familiar with Larry, but what was the allure? What was the impetus for this whole thing?
I think this is one of the great underdog stories of all time.
Yeah, it is.
Larry Bird is a great underdog story. And then he's wrapped in another underdog story. You know, we like to think that Larry Bird comes fully formed and completely packaged and destined for greatness. That's just not how it happens at all.
Yeah.
You know, and even when he gets to Indiana State, you know, he doesn't play on national TV until the last 3 weeks of his college career. He never makes the NCAA tournament until that final season. Most people have never seen him play. And that Indiana State team is a true Cinderella. Yeah. You know, steaming into that Final Four at 33-0, capturing the American imagination.
Incredible. And plus, it was such a different time. You couldn't check the highlights on TikTok.
Right. ESPN won't even debut for 6 more months.
Yeah. You've been getting rave reviews for this. As a writer, what does it mean, even when you're getting blurbs and you're getting the respect of your peers? Does that hit home for you? Does it mean anything to you?
Well, I mean, it means everything, of course. I mean, you want that. But even more important is the response in the past, week from readers. I just came back from Indiana, launched the book out there, did the first week of the tour there. And, I was with the players on that miracle team. I was with the head coach who saved Larry Bird. And, those crowds of fans, were emotional about this moment because they remember what it was like, to be living in the middle of this miracle some 50 years ago.
You say it right there, right? They live the miracle. And in this day and age where everything is happening so rapidly and people aren't even making time to sit down and watch entire games, what's the message you have for readers out there, or maybe people who aren't necessarily big readers, to slow down and take time with this?
Well, you know, I only write books that touch on the topic of sports if they transcend the game. I'm not interested in the box score. I'm not interested in the statistics. You know, I'm interested in the human story. And this is just an incredibly compelling human narrative about a guy from the edge of nowhere and a group of people, you know, came together to do something unbelievable. And, you know, as we enter March Madness, we're going to have some great stories. We're going to have some upsets. Some, you know, fun things will happen. But it will not be anything like this moment in '79, which was like a furious tide that picks everybody up and takes them somewhere different.
It would be passé for me to say the hick from French Lick, right? But the subtitle I love about this, A Forgotten Place, An Impossible Dream, and the Miracle of Larry Bird. It encapsulates so much in those so few words. Incredible read. Can't wait. Keith, thank you so much for being here. Continued success.
Thank you.
And real quick, any picks for March Madness?
Well, you know, there's an undefeated team out of Ohio right now, Miami. You know, I'll be keeping my eye on them.
Fantastic. Keith O'Brien, author of Heartland, joining us in studio. Thanks again.
Thank you.
All right, we'll be right back.